Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about conducting scientific research as a student, and I'm going to look at the process of the research. In my presentation, I have the following outline. First, I'll talk about being a research student. Then, I'll talk about choosing your supervisor. Then, I'll talk about doing your research. Then, I'll summarize the presentation. So, let's get started. A research student is a student or someone who is typically required to perform research as part of the enrolled program of study at a university. So once you're a student at a university, depending on the level where you are, you'll be required to perform research, as part of your study, and at that particular point in time, you become a research student. And the program of study, at the university level may be at different levels. There can be one at the diploma level, it can be either at the HNA level, or at the bachelor's level, or at the master's degree level, or at the doctor of philosophy or PhD level. Or sometimes, you could even go beyond the doctor of philosophy level and do a postdoc, or what you call a post-PhD program. At each of these levels, once you're engaged in your research, you are a research student. And at this particular stage, a research student, as a research student, you are typically required to perform your research at a university or at a research facility, basically. And in the process of your research, usually depending on the level where the research is to be done, the duration can actually vary from between 1 to about 4 years, or sometimes even beyond 4 years, depending on the level of work and depending on the kind of research that is actually being done. But generally, as you move higher up from the diploma level through to the PhD level, the duration for the research work also increases because the demand, for original research also increases. And at the end of the research duration, it's expected that as a student, you should have finished with your research work. As part of your research, you'll be required to choose a research supervisor, and this supervisor will be there to guide you throughout the duration of your research period. And the research supervisor is usually a senior academic, who usually works or lectures at a university, or who works, at a dedicated research institution, basically. And the role of your research supervisor is to help you, to guide you throughout the duration of your research. The reason why your supervisor is there to guide you is that your supervisor has experience, he's been through the process before, so he can use his experience and the knowledge he's acquired over the years to help guide you, so you don't have to run into obstacles that can actually stall the progress of your work. And it is important that you, as a research student, you choose a supervisor you can easily work with, and a supervisor who also has similar research interests as you do. Because if you don't, you can actually run into problems. And if you choose a wrong supervisor, or a supervisor who doesn't really know about the area that you want to do your research, or a supervisor who actually has some issues that will make it difficult for you to work with him, that can become a difficulty for you, especially in making progress with your research work. And sometimes the difficulty can actually prevent you from actually carrying out your research. So it's very, very important that the issue of supervisor is looked at critically as a research student. If you're a student, the issue of choosing your supervisor is something you should look at very critically. All research works generally have to do with generating scientific knowledge to help solve a specific problem confronting society. And the problem that you're required to solve may be at a global scale, or a problem affecting the world at large, or it may be a problem at a local scale, or a problem affecting the immediate environment where you are. Regardless, your research must be aimed or targeted at solving a problem which may be in any of these categories. And once you have your research supervisor in place, you start your research by observing and by reading and studying around to find problems that you can solve through your research. And once the problems are identified, you then come up with proposed solutions to the problems, and then you start working on them. And in the process of the research, as a student, you are required to engage your supervisor periodically as you carry out your research. And sometimes the periodically may either be engage your supervisor weekly or 2 times a week, depending on how short the duration may be. Or if you engage in a long-term duration research, like a research that's supposed to take about 4 years to do, you can engage your supervisor at least in 2 weeks intervals, or even monthly, basically, to update your supervisor on what has been done so far. And then you can also engage your supervisor. So if your supervisor has any contribution or any other areas your supervisor wants you to look at, you can then go and use the time to look at that before your next engagement with your supervisor. So it's very, very important that you engage your supervisor, because sometimes problems that you may run into may be no problems at all for your supervisor. You just have to engage, and then most of the issues could actually be resolved. So in summary, as a research student, you are typically required to perform research as part of your enrolled program of study, typically at the university. The duration for your research may vary depending on the level and depending on the intensity or the detailed, the level and how detailed your work should be. And it can vary up to about 4 years and even beyond, depending on your level. And during the research period, you're required to choose a supervisor who will help guide you throughout the duration of your research. And once you have a supervisor in place, you determine which problem you want to solve, and then you just start work. And at the end of the duration of your research period, it is expected by the university or by the research institution you're engaged in that you should have completed your research by the end of the duration or by the end of the research period. So this brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for watching.